You're listening to the Hazard Ground Podcast, with service members from across the military sharing their stories of combat and survival. And now, here's your host, Mark Zinno.
Welcome into the Hazard Ground Podcast. As always, we appreciate you joining us each and every week. Before we get to this week's guest, who's got an amazing organization in his post-military career, one that drew me to tell his story. And the more I dove into his story, the more excited I am for you guys all to hear it. We'll get to him coming up in just a moment. On normal reminders, please follow us on all the social media sites. You guys are lagging. We need more social media presence. We need your help. So follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hazard Ground Podcast. This way you can help grow the show. We'll give you all the information there about guests and what we have coming up, so please stay tuned there on social media as well. Please continue to leave us Apple reviews. Give us 5 stars. Tell us why you love the show. This helps the algorithm, helps grow the show, and get more people and eyeballs and ears on these wonderful stories that we tell each and every week. Of course, don't forget about our promotion with Amazon. You can go to our website, hazardground.com, click on the Amazon button up at the bottom of the homepage or under the sponsors tab. That'll redirect you to Amazon. You can do all of your normal Amazon shopping. We get a percentage of what you guys spend. Then we donate a percentage of that back to some of the charities and organizations like the one you'll hear about today. And it's our way of giving back, and it's your way of being able to help out military folks and military organizations just from doing some Amazon shopping. Works as well from your smartphone. Redirect you right to the app. So if you save all your credit card information, really user-friendly and really easy to do. So we appreciate you guys doing that each and every week. Again, hazardground.com. All right, this week's guest is a retired Army colonel, spent over 30 years in uniform. In fact, he signed up during the Vietnam era during the first all-volunteer after the draft. He was part of the first all-volunteer signups right after or right toward the end of Vietnam. As I said, spent 30 years, some of it in special operations as a pilot with the 160th SOAR, and then went on to spend a better part of his career. And the best way I'll describe it is sort of diplomatic negotiations and with the enemy and things of that nature. It's just a really complicated story that our guest will tell you more about here in a moment. But what I have found most interesting is, in his post-career, he founded a nonprofit called TERRA Search, which basically is an all-volunteer, veteran-volunteer organization that is working to recover missing in action folks from every conflict from around the world. It's just an amazing organization that I'm so drawn to, and he is PJ Dermer joining us here on the Hazard Ground. PJ, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Morning, Mark. Thanks for the time, and thanks for Hazard Ground for you guys for having us. We appreciate it very much.
Again, just amazing. We see so much, POW, MIA stuff, and we know we're always looking, and we 100% believe leave no one behind. And it's just amazing to see that you guys are doing this. I remember when I deployed to Iraq the first time, Matt Maupin was the American. He was a specialist at the time. He was captured. They assumed he was killed, and, he was MIA for 4 or 5 years, or 6 years, whatever it was. I think eventually then around 2012 or 13, they finally found his remains somewhere in Iraq. It was Matthew Keith Maupin, and they had signs and posters of him everywhere, just letting us know if anybody's seen him and everything. And again, he was captured, I think, in 2004, but they didn't find his remains for another 10 years. And I always thought that was just something that was always so God for the family. The hope is slim, but you hold out forever. And to finally give them the closure and everything that they needed so badly was so important. No more solace of loss for the family, but to circle it back to what you guys do, it's just, I'm sure for the remains that you find and the MIA and the POWs that you find that I can't imagine what it means to those families to do it. So it's just a wonderful organization. I'm so excited to hear about it.
Good. We appreciate it. Yeah, it's something we can, I personally, we founded it. I founded it, but the folks that join us, we don't even have a lot of words to describe it because it's not one of those things that you can describe. But when you do find a fellow brother after all those years, it's nice to put action to words. I see the black flag. We all see the flags. We've seen the logo, like you said, lest we forget. Don't never forget. Well, when you actually really are involved in the real world mission, it's a whole different world, and it's really quite rewarding. And I need to have that after our careers like we've all had, and with the military combat time, conflict time, hazardous time, doesn't matter. This is a great way to kind of wrap it up, per se.
No, absolutely. And just, I mean, an incredible way to give back. All right. We start at the beginning for you. As I mentioned, you signed up as part of the first all volunteer signups during Vietnam. So what was the reasoning, how and why?
Yeah, it's a great story. I wasn't given a choice. I was having teenage troubles. Less less those that don't. I teach a lot today in the world, both in the SOCOM community and other military communities, and we get a lot of the younger generation, possibly even your generation, that said, "Yeah, 9/11 hit. I had to go. It was my calling. I got to go. I was an engineer. I was a doctor. I was a fireman, but 9/11, I've got to get downrange." And then we get one or two that said, "Well, I went in because I had nowhere to go," and that's essentially my story. I was 15, 16, going nowhere fast. 17 came around. I had been in court a couple times. Let's just say that. Been in front of a judge a few times. And in those days, there was something back in those days, there was something called court order referrals. In other words, the judge would call your family and say, "Hey, we've seen this young buck PJ one too many times in front of us. You might want to consider getting him something to do." And one of the things we offer or recommend is the military, is induction into the military.
Yeah, well, the old "got a letter in the mail, go to war or go to jail" kind of Jody Cole from back in the day was you, huh?
Yeah, because I was a juvenile, I was able to stay out of jail.
Yeah,
put it that way at the time. Thank God. Right. No, I've had guns in my face on the ground, handcuffs, you name it. And we were involved in some other things, teenagers. The classic story I like to tell is I got on the school bus every morning and I got off the school bus at night, but I was never in school in between. So as that was starting to build to a heyday, the court and the judge and the lawyers and the counselors said, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Dermer, you might want to find something else for this guy to do because he's heading to nowhere fast." So I did enlist, but I enlisted with my father taking me down to the station, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. I had been in military school as a younger child. My parents, my stepfather had been in military school, so we'd done that for a few years. So it wasn't so unknown to me. And at 17, my 17th birthday, my dad handed me a birthday card, put me in the car, and we went down and I enlisted. And it was 74. So unbeknownst to me, as I would find out later, that, this is really the heyday of Vietnam, that where everything's coming crashing down. If you could see a graph or, PhD, Vietnam is coming down to an end. The United States is trying to figure out how to get out of there. Kissinger, Nixon days, which I knew nothing of. And so we enlisted infantry. It was $2,000 bonus. Other than that, I didn't know anything about it. Airborne Ranger was offered as a possibility after infantry school. And, they said they would talk to me about that later. Never got there because I barely got through the training. And I enlisted. And of course, the first thing that hit me in the face, which pertains to coming up to TERRA Search here 30 years later, which is fascinating. The first thing that hit me in the face was everybody was from Vietnam. So when I got the basic training, which is at Fort Knox, Kentucky, I'd say over half the platoon was guys from Vietnam that were trying to come back in to get something to do. They just didn't make it when they got out, or didn't like it. They didn't like when they got out. So half was from Vietnam, and then the other half was from every dredge of the world. We had folks that couldn't speak English. We had folks that didn't have passports. We had folks that didn't even know where they were. And now we're all together in Fort Knox, Kentucky, in the old cotton uniforms, really shabby looking, black boots without any kind of insoles in it. Nothing fancy like today. I mean, there's no Arc'teryx, there's no Under Armour. This was hardcore, off the shelf stuff. We didn't have jungle boots. We had black leather. So those two things, colliding with the Vietnam community and then coming in the Army to get straightened out, was how it all started. And it didn't happen right away. It took a while. And I think less than half of us graduated from basic training. I mean, it was a mess. We had to have people from other companies come into the platoon to march in the graduation day parade because not enough people passed basic training. And I can tell you the Army in that day, not the Army, but the Army that I was exposed to, primarily infantry and whatnot, it wasn't special operations, was a mess. I mean, hardly anybody was in it for the military. No one had any drive like today. Well, like I said, 9/11, I got to go serve. There was no drive. Everybody was in it for some personal reason and some story that they had to get away from back home. To wit, we had one one young man from Iowa, big old boy, good looking guy. And he had PFC stripes on in the platoon. And when we were all finished checking in and getting our gear and getting to know each other, we said, hey, how come you have a PFC stripe? How'd you get that? Because we were all privates. He says, well, I have 2 years of college. We're like, 2 years of college gets you PFC? And he said, yeah. So, we called him all throughout basic training. We called him Doc. So here's this one guy in our platoon that's got 2 years of college with a rocker, and we call him Doc.
There you go.
So imagine compared to who's in today, where there are actual doctors and PhDs and master's graduates, guys that have worked on Wall Street, guys that have had careers and joined the military. It's quite the different time frame than when I joined. Oh yeah, it was crazy.
No, I mean, obviously it is. Was there any part of you going through basic training that thought like, boy, Dad got me in a pickle, or I got myself in a pickle, like I'm not where I'm supposed to be, kind of deal?
Well, my of course, physically I was a wreck. I mean, like I said, we were involved with a lot of things as teenagers. So physically I was a wreck. I'd never run more than 5 steps to the bathroom or away from guys that were chasing me.
I was going to say.
yeah.
Away from the cops, right? That was the farthest I had to run.
Yeah. We were in good shape. But my issue was mostly attitude, 17-year-old high school dropout, because I had to go to high school. I had to drop out, which was the middle of 11th grade. So I didn't start my second semester, 11th grade. My father had to sign both to drop out and to get me in the Army as a dropout. Of course, in today's military, they wouldn't take me. It's this fascinating juxtaposition. But so I'm a high school dropout. So my issue, like many others, was attitude. I was waking up in the morning. I was going through the training. I thought it was cool when we got our first M16. Oh, by the way, A1 with no flash suppressor, just the 3 prongs.
There you go.
Hey, so I thought, oh, that was cool. It was neat. We're throwing grenades. We're marching like crazy. We're walking through God knows what. But nobody, I wasn't into it. I wasn't mentally there. I was just doing it because, well, let me get through this and I'll see what happens. I mean, these were days when they could whoop on us, they could beat on us. The cooks would yell at us. The cooks would throw things at us. They would purposely make you go to the end of the line in the morning, and all you got was chipped beef and toast. I mean, they would do that to you. They wouldn't let you go in early to get the full. So,
my stepfather, who's a Vietnam vet, told me about shit on a shingle, aka chipped beef.
I can't do it till today. I can't do it.
He loves it.
Boy,
he loves it.
I can't do grits.
He still loves it.
Oh, I'm telling you, yeah. If that's all you got, and actually it's got beef in it. It's got real beef in it, not the crap that they hid.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Yeah.
I enjoy it. I listen, I've only had it for the, past couple of years of life. But I mean, listen, it's not a bad meal. It'll certainly fill you up at breakfast, to say the least. And
that's the key. We didn't eat anyway. We weren't allowed to eat. We had to put it in and get out. But so, I wasn't really there. And then I went to infantry AIT in Fort Polk in the day, and it was through the summer.
Oh, God.
And they still had the Vietnam, in the heyday of Vietnam, they had Vietnamese village set up. Sort of like we have NTC today out in California, and we've built these mock Iraqi Afghan villages.
Yeah.
They had the Vietnamese village in Polk. It was not part of the training when I went through, but they walked us through the ville with all the straw blats. And of course, there were a couple guys that were whipping out lighters, being funny. They were whipping out lighters, as is the great picture from Vietnam, putting the Hamlet on fire. But it was more just a fact of trudging through, and because where else was I going to go? And I wasn't, I wasn't excelling. I wasn't a standout cadet. I was a good shot. I was a very good shot, but I wasn't all the other tasks that they did. I was just doing it. So still, it was true that we all were enamored by the guys talking about Nam. But this was also the first place that I heard about guys that didn't come back. There was a lot of guys in the platoons, especially in AIT, that their brothers didn't come back. So that's where I first started to hear about that too. And I'm like, what do you mean didn't come back? I didn't know what it meant. It didn't register with me. And then my first tour was Korea, up in Korea as a 17.
Did you think you were headed to Vietnam at any point?
Almost. I was in Korea as a 17-and-a-half-year-old, then 18-year-old. And Lord, I won't even go into those stories, but they're pretty rough. The rough time in Korea was mainly off duty. On duty was crazy because there was a lot happening on the DMZ. I was very fortunate. I got to be in Seoul a lot. But yeah, so in April 75 came around, Nam started to fall. Word was passed to our unit or to Korea. I don't have enough details as remembering as a PFC, that, we were going to send people from Korea to assist in whatever was happening in Vietnam. That's about as deep as I can remember. So, the only way I actually can remember better is they started to give us new equipment. We went and drew equipment, not the junk we were wearing. We got cleaner, new rifles, cleaner gear and all that. And then we didn't go. Nam fell so fast, Saigon fell so fast, as we know from the history, that we didn't go. And that as a PFC in the infantry is all I remember about it. No one gave us any details. But we got a little bit excited. The guys that were from Nam got very excited. And then it was over. And then we didn't. And they took everything back, and we went on with the same old dregs, which was going on in Korea at the time.
Yeah.
Actually, the Army, if I may, one of my big recollections that folks don't know, as we study history and lessons learned, or we don't, is in Korea, I watched the Army Infantry Corps, the Army that I was involved with. Again, I wasn't with SF. I wasn't with any special team, implode on itself. The Army was killing itself when I was in Korea. It means that it was just incredibly high incidence of morale problems, discipline problems. Folks didn't show up for work. We never saw officers never. And when we did, we didn't want to be around them. NCOs were the key of my life. NCOs saved my life. Ultimately, they got me in school. They got me in a direction. They got me playing sports and whatnot. So that our world was involved around a very small platoon level kind of stuff. The fighting that was going on, the incidents between races was big, white, black, Puerto Rican, you name it. There was just a sense of no control. People carried knives in their uniforms. People hung out in groups in uniform on duty. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And this was all Nam. This was all post Nam crashing down to earth, which is in a way got the Army to get itself up in the years that we now know, your generation and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. So, without fast forwarding too much, how do you get on the officer/pilot path?
Yeah. I same things that got me in the Army. I DEROS came up, ETS came up, and I was in Fort Stewart, Georgia at the time. I went from Korea to Fort Stewart. They were just starting up the 24th Infantry. Mm-hmm. They were reactivating it. Most of the guys were either Rangers or folks coming from all over the world to beef up the 24th. It was only 1 or 2 brigades. So I did the infantry drag there for a year after Korea. And sergeant said, well, it's time to re-up. You got nowhere to go, nothing to do. We know you're not going anywhere. You're going to go right back to what you did if you don't sign up. In other words, you end up being what you were before you came in the Army. I said, yeah, maybe, but I don't want to stay in the Army. I figured the Army did a good job. I had gotten high school, not GED. I got a high school diploma. I started playing sports, team sport hockey. I was taking 1 or 2 small college credits a night. I was a different guy. I'd grown up a little bit. I was helmet liner and boots, as they called me when I came in. Helmet liner went all the way down the boots, and now I was 15 pounds more, 20 pounds more. Just knew I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be going through that anymore. And they cornered me hard. They tried to make me sign, literally physically making me sign the papers, if you can imagine, in those days. I didn't. I got out, and then I realized I didn't have anything to do. Oops. I knew that was a path. That right back to where I was. So I started working, got a job working construction, and then came around to the next year. Same thing. I said, shit, what do I do? I'm not smart enough to invent the pet rock. I can't paint. I don't do whatever. So I thought I'd apply for college, which I never thought I'd ever be going to college. I applied for college, and the only one that accepted me was University of Montana. For reasons of applying there, I'm a Baltimore boy, which is why I enlisted. And I said, I can't stay in Baltimore. I got to go as far away from here as possible because I know those guys will come back out. They're already knocking on my door saying, hey, we heard you're back. And I went out to Montana. I applied to schools all out throughout the West. My brother, interestingly, had also applied and got accepted into Montana as a forester. And Montana, for reasons I don't know today, accepted me. It's the only school that did. No idea why. I should have kissed the old lady that said it. I think part of it's because I had GI Bill. I had the Vietnam era GI Bill, which gave us a monthly check. It's a very cool thing. I give the service a lot of credit for the GI Bill since its inception until today. As you know, today families can have it. I had the GI Bill. So I said, you know what? I'll go to college. And me and my brother, I bought a car and he brought the dog and we drove out west of Montana. Neither one of us hadn't been there before. I had no idea where Montana was. And Once I got out to Montana and got settled, I said, well, I got to make some bucks. So got a few jobs, bartending and whatnot. And I figured, what the heck? I'll walk over to ROTC. And I walked over to ROTC and I said, how does one get a few bucks while they're in school? And they said, well, your prior service, so we can make you an early commissioning. In other words, it's ROTC's normal 4 years, freshman, I could start as
I'm a product of the ROTC world. Cool.
And so I got that $100 a month check. I said, I'll do it. And then in ROTC, I started doing real well. I said, ROTC and I got along very well. School was doing very well in school. And so the ROTC came to me and said, okay, great. How do you want to enter the service? I said, who said I want to enter the service? He said, come on, Dermer, you're going to enter, buddy. We want you as RA, regular Army. I said, great. I don't know if I want to do as a career, but I'll do some years and I'll get out. And they said, okay, fine. And they said, hey, have you ever thought about being an aviator? I'm like, no. Well, why would I do that? And they said, well, another way to make a few bucks. If your goal is to make a few bucks, get settled, then get out, aviation pays you extra. It was either aviation or, airborne ranger, all that kind of stuff again. I said, okay. And I knew I didn't want to go in the infantry because I saw what happened to the infantry corps work. Of course, don't forget, I got NOM sitting over me, how all that was.
Right.
So I took MI, military intelligence, didn't really know what it was. And I took the aviation test. And in those days, this was 82, aviation wasn't a branch. So you couldn't come in the Army to be aviation. You had to come in the Army as a combat arms.
Right.
RA, regular Army select. So I had to be combat arms and you could do an aviation secondary. So we wore, just like the guys in NOM, we wore a basic uniform and then we had an aviation badge, but you weren't an aviator. Okay. Again, I don't understand this. So I took it past the AFSAB and you know what? I'll do 5. That can't hurt. And then I'll get the hell out and do something else. Well, 5 turned into 30. But that's how I got back to the Army.
Small miscalculation.
Right. Yeah. Right there. That's right. Right. So the first thing hits the ground. And we came in. And of course, the ironic thing is before I came in the Army, is I told the Army a little fib. I said, hey, I'm graduating in May of 82. Sign me up. You can take me. And I wasn't. I actually graduated in December. And the reason I did that is I wanted some space before I came in. I just wanted to get a deep breath thing and then go in the Army. Because again, I wasn't so enamored by it. I was doing it as a career progression choice. And I took a backpacking trip to the Middle East for 3 months through the toughest times the Middle East had seen up to that time. Now we now know that the Middle East is on fire a lot. A lot of us have served in it. I've been all through it, multiple tours, both in Iraq and in places, hazardous duty tours. So we get it, but it's not the only time. In the early 80s, it was on fire as well. Syria was fighting itself. Lebanon was a massive civil war. Lebanon and Israel and the Arab Army were all fighting each other. Right. Jordan was a Bedouin kingdom, nothing there. So I took a backpacking trip both through there and Northern Ireland. It was the political dislocation that intrigued me. It was like, what's with these guys? Can't they get it together? So I went and saw. And I did that before I came in the Army as kind of a airing out tour. And ironically, when I did my SF-86 to get my clearance, the security world said, something's wrong here. And the operational world loved it. So the operational world picked me up as a FAO secondary early. Normally, you don't do that in your 8th or 10th year of service, maybe a little later. I never had a choice. I was nominated as a FAO without me knowing it. They loved the operational trip that I did. The intel world hated it. The intel world refused to give me a clearance. So here I am as a new officer. I go to MI OBC and the commander calls me and says, hey, we got an issue is you're not going to get a top secret clearance. If you don't get a top secret clearance, you can't be MI and maybe your military career is in doubt. And I said to him, you know what, after everything I've been through, whatever you want to do, do it. I don't have any, what can I do to influence it? He said nothing, but he said, interestingly enough, we're not going to send you. I was supposed to go to Fort Devens Special Forces follow-on track. It's a track they had at the time up at Devens, and that's what I was going to do. So MI Special Forces. He said, interestingly enough, aviation doesn't require clearance. All they have is dials that go red, green, and black, or black, whatever, and no one cares. So you know what? If you don't mind going to flight school, why don't you go to flight school and we'll work out the rest of this. I'm like, okay. And bingo. Next thing I know, I'm on my way to flight school without having completed my MI track. And of course, where does the Army send me is to an MI position in Germany once I graduated from flight school. So that's what got me in the service, and that was the whole start. So even my past was sticking with me then, up to the time of creation. MI.
And I failed to mention this at the beginning. You do have multiple combat deployments under your belt. One of them being in Panama, which comes around in the late '80s. So, without fast forwarding too much, you obviously you learn to fly. I mean, are you immediately inserted into special operations as far as flying is concerned, or do you have some other positions first before you get there?
Yeah, I spent 5 years in the Cold War, which of course today is paying benefits for the consulting gigs, consulting world. Spent 5 years in the Cold War in a division aviation unit. So I flew everything they had there. Single engine. Blackhawks were just coming in at the time. And then when like I said, I came in the Army, do my 5 years and get the heck out. I was married. I got married by that time. And my wife said to me, "Hey, do you really want to get out?" She liked it. She had been in the service and gotten out as well. And I said, "Well, I kind of want to get out. I came in, do 5 years. I'll go on the Guard Reserve and we'll move on." She was like, "Well, maybe we should look at something else." And just at that moment, when she was saying that, I got a call from Washington, D.C., from Aviation Branch, Special Management Office, which is just being stood up, that, "Hey, would I like to assess for something?" And they weren't unclassed lines. I said, "Assess for what?" They said, "Well, we have a couple neat aviation units we think you'd be well fitted for." And I couldn't find anybody in the unit that had been. There'd only been one person in the unit he was in Grenada, and it was with the task force, what we call the task force 160th. He said, "Yeah, I think I know where they're telling you about. I can't tell you a lot, but I think I know where they want to send you." The brigade commander called me in and said, I've not been to where they want to send you. The only thing I'll tell you is that unit kills people." I'm like, "Sir, aviators, what aviation unit doesn't kill people?" He goes, "Nah, this one's a little different." He said, "Go see. Go see. If you don't like it, we'll go from there." So I ended up flying to Fort Campbell, and also flew to one other place, but I'll just talk about Campbell. I flew to Fort Campbell. Found out it was the 160th. Nobody knew anything about it. The front gate couldn't tell me where it was. The CQ and the division headquarters couldn't tell me where it was. We're up in a bunker on top, way back yonder. I just went there a couple weeks ago for the 40th reunion, and it's this bunker in the middle of nowhere it's an old ammo bunker. I'm like, great. And I show up there. It's the weekend. The CQ goes, "What do you want?" Okay. I guess this is artsy, but it was the 160th, and we assessed. There was only 3 of us in that time. Very informal gig. We ran around the building. We drove to the swimming pool together, and we all hopped in the pool. We had like makeup classrooms in people's houses and out in parking lots. It's nothing like it is today. The formal world is today. And my assessment partner was Mike Durant.
Really?
Yeah,
Mike, a former guest on the show.
Yeah, Mike, from Somalia fame, Mike and I were assessment partners. Yeah. So 3 of us assessed. Mike and I got in. The third guy was a Chinook guy, and he didn't make it. And then we went in from there. But they wanted me to be in the intel world first. They wanted an aviator. They wanted a combat arms aviator, one that had been in the combat arms unit, to go in the intel shop, because they were bringing in a ground intel guy for the first time. Their other intel guys flew too much, and they wanted someone that would stay on the ground and do intel, and then I could be the aviator that understood aviation.
Sure.
And that's what they brought me.
You're the translator, essentially.
Yeah, and then I was going to go down to the line unit and fly, and I flew Little Birds. So I picked up Little Birds to be my supporting units, and of course can't say enough about it. A lot of busy time, not busy like we were in the Iraq heyday, but we were just in building things. We were learning at those days and getting time downrange.
What was your role in Panama?
Panama, I was the primary intel planner for the unit.
Okay.
So I initially ended up getting the unit to war, literally.
So no actual flying, though.
Oh, I did. Okay. I ended up, and after the start of the war, they detached a whole bunch of us to go up north with one of the other units, a couple of us aviators and an aviation detachment. And I went up north. They had a shortage of seats, and I got the seat for that, to do that for a bit. But I was in those days, we couldn't fill the seats, which was really strange if you think about it. But I got in flying up there, but nothing of the intense value like the unit would see years later.
No, sure. Yeah. But I mean, again, and just cause only lasted what, little over
Couple
a month,
weeks.
right? Yeah, it was like 5 weeks.
Couple weeks for us. Yeah, we were out of there. We actually got. I was since I was the primary intel planner for that. I actually got no notice to. I was on the first plane into Manila when Nick Rowe got killed.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I got pulled out of Panama to actually get on that plane to go out to the Philippines to do some assessments when Nick got killed.
Interesting. Now it's starting to make sense about all of your sort of diplomatic stuff with the intel background that you have in all of this. And again, without it's hard. Listen, 30 years, PJ, is really tough to cover in a short amount of time. I don't want to fast, but anything significant from Panama between Panama and 9/11, is it more Cold War stuff that you're in? More,
yeah,
I mean,
we're at that time. Not Cold War, but we're in the precursor of. We got into the drug war. We got into the drug fight.
Sure.
We got into what I would call the looking for Elvis kind of things. We actually even had T-shirts made. Actually, one of the makers of the T-shirts, the generator of one of the T-shirts, looking for Elvis, was a guy named Cliff Walcott.
Yep. Also Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, Cliff unfortunately gave his life in Mogadishu. So we did some looking for bad guys around the world kind of things. And we were also figuring out things. We weren't quite to the sophisticated level of today. We were learning and figuring out how to do things while at the same time doing real world missions. So I got some flying time down in Central America as well.
I mean, how much of during this time frame are you sort of honing your MI skills as opposed to your pilot skills? I mean, is it 50-50? Are you more focused on flying, or are you more working in the MI field?
I know I didn't want to be in the MI field. I mean, after they refused to give me a security clearance and basic training, I said, I'm getting out of this mess. But the Army kept reinserting me back so that, they make me an intel officer in the brigade in Germany battalion. And then the 160th recruits me specifically because I'm aviation intel. I mean, that was the draw, is having both. Right. So I get put back into it there. To me, the intel's not the hardest, is hard. But, the flying at that time was tactless where I wanted to be. As I've grown up years later, the intel stuff is almost twice as hard than the tactical.
Yeah.
I kept juxtaposing, but then becoming a FAO later, the intel world also drives into the FAO world.
Do you ever stop to think, I mean, you're 10, 12, a dozen years into your career now, by the time, we're late 90s time frame and you've done all this stuff, you didn't graduate freaking high school. And now you're a guy who's, doing high-level intelligence operations for the military in some of the most remote places in the world. Did you ever stop and pause and think, how the hell did I end up here?
No, no, but I did have someone bring it to my face directly when they started calling me Captain Question.
What do you explain?
I always ask questions.
Oh, okay.
Guys, you got to understand where I come from. Okay, you got to understand my where I'm from. If I don't understand something, which is quite a lot, I'm not afraid. I'm not shy to ask. For most people, as you know, will sit there and be quiet, right? They won't say anything. Anybody got any questions? And nobody raises a hand. I've got questions. And then you put me in the special operations world, which is not yet mature. It doesn't have manuals or field manuals, TMs, or any doctrine. Like I said, we ran around the bunker. So nothing is mature. I can see what guys are doing, what the flight leads are doing, and why we're plus or minus this and why we're only this. But I mean, what is it that's driving us to do this? And, the guy said, okay, it's enough already with the questions. I said, well, I can't be shy. I'm a high school dropout. I mean, I didn't get here by being shy. I wouldn't be here right now if I was shy. I mean, you don't, right, from what I came from to now is a long way. And I'm curious. I want to know how it works. I want to know how everything works. And then I can help you input as to how we might go and how we might develop. So it did mold a little bit, but I didn't stop to think then. Now, and when I was in the White House later, when I was working in the White House, when I was working senior things in Iraq, it did cross my mind. It was, oh my God, look where I am and how did I get here?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So where are you when 9/11 approaches?
I was standing in Jenin in the West Bank. By this time, the FAO, I'd become a FAO. We were prepping for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And one of the more ironic things about that, I will tell you, is the 101st Airborne and deployed from Fort Campbell in 1990. And the 160th, the task force, did not. Now, you got to understand, heretofore, every time as we disappear in the middle of the night, the guys go, oh, whatever. And then we come back and no one knows the difference except there's a couple more people in the gym or the PX. Well, this Desert Shield Storm, the 101st deployed, and we did not.
Right.
And there was a lot of ego bashing. I mean, we were working 28 hours a day. Of course, we'll go when. We did get eventually missions coming down. We did get preparation. I worked those for classified kind of things. But then, as you know, that when we did deploy for the Desert Storm, the special operations did not have a major role. I think it's fair enough to say. We lost some guys, by the way. That doesn't matter to family. We lost guys in the run up, but we did not have a major role. We went out west, as folks know. The big war was the ground war. And oh, by the way, this is probably not known that much, but General Schwarzkopf told our leadership that the tail's not wagging the dog. And what he meant by that is the Panama, which is a very neat study. You don't hear about it. Panama was a special operations led SOCOM, 18th Airborne Corps led mission, and it had ground forces conventional attached.
Right.
Right. Unusual. Normally we get attached. So Schwarzkopf told our leadership in no uncertain terms, that's not happening. This is tanks, bullets, artillery. We'll lead the way. We'll call you when we need you. And that's the truth. So right at that moment, I got called in between the actual deployment for Saudi. I had to leave to go be to become a FAO. And the FAO training is a university language and in-country training. It's the most intensive, expensive training of its kind in the United States government. And I became what was called a Hebrew FAO, one of the first ones. I think I was like second. Hebrew FAO, meaning I was supposed to concentrate with Israel like that. So I started that last third career path down the FAO world. This is the year 12, 15 that I got called to do that. And I went to Georgetown. I went to Hebrew all the time while calling up the unit. Hey, did you go yet? Did you go yet? And then, of course, I couldn't go to in-country. The Army couldn't get me in Israel. So they sent me to the Middle East and the UN, which worked out because the UN put me in all the Arab countries. And if you're going to work the Israel portfolio, being an Arab side is nothing but an education as well. It turned out to work out very well. Plus, I also got to live with UN like Russians and Chinese, and you can imagine as a captain and the days down in the bar and the happy hours, and we're having to deal with Russian and Chinese and you name it. We were pretty straightforward folks with those guys, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm. So 9/11 happens, and
yeah.
I mean, at this point, you're what? Almost 20.
Well on the fail track, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like you're over 20 years in already.
Yeah, well on the fail track. So FAO, as you know, once we normally do embassy tours, and I did my first tour in Israel. A lot of stories there, a lot of bad times. And then you normally go to senior staff. So you go joint staff, Army staff, combat and command staff, you go to whatnot. So you're at the senior now. You're now dealing at strategic levels with tactical know-how. Let's call it that. 9/11 happens. I was on the joint staff, and the joint staff, I had taken a trip over to Israel. I was a Middle East desk officer for Levant countries, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, with some other stuff working in Libya. I happened to go to Israel. We were all gone. It was an end of year, get rid of the fiscal funds kind of thing. Hey, everyone on the road. So the entire staff was out. 9/11 happens. I get a call from my Israeli buddy. Hey, PJ, somebody crashed into the tower. You might want to get on the news. And then funny, here I am. I'm standing next to an Israeli tank who's about to shoot into the Palestinian city of Jenin to hurt somebody for real. So I got, a lot, and I happen to know that the unit commander of that Israeli tank crew. I got a lot of time in the West Bank in my first tour in Gaza, you name it. Wow, this is juxtaposed. So I hustle back to Tel Aviv. I see on the news, we all know what's happening. Of course, we can't get home. Nobody can return back, as you know, because the airspace was closed. So we're talking the J5 was General Abizaid. He was gone. Everybody's gone. So none of us can get back. Of course, and it was all hands get back. And something I will share with the listeners, just in anything you do with Israel is incredibly complicated and emotional, dynamic, right? Normally it's held at, but as attachés, we had a lot of learnings there. And I must have gotten in my hotel room 100 calls throughout the day and night, all hours, of the Israelis asking me, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? I'm like, wow, it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm an emotional wreck like everybody else, right? But they were doing that. And then they brought me in their planning. Israelis brought me into their inner sanctum for their planning to what they were going to do, send to get to the States, to include I could fly on their airplane if I wanted into the U.S. So it's just a moment to share that when things are bad, who really shows up and who doesn't. These guys kick.
Well, not to turn this into a political thing or
right.
anything, but the relationship with Israel, there are people who get it and people who don't. That's all I'll say.
Oh God, yeah. Like I said, that's what I said. It's its own class, but just to know from being in at that level, we get back, and of course, folks will know. At the level of the Pentagon, you're at strategic levels, and the only question in the Pentagon at the time was, "What are we going to do?" Right. So everybody became an action officer for suggesting something to do, and I feel sorry for all the trees that were felled across the country for us producing papers that God knows where they went, but everybody had an idea. Take Antarctica, smash, you name it.
So as a foreign attaché, for doing this for all these years, did anything prep you for this moment? Like, was there anything relatable, even in the scope of just planning purposes, that you had worked on prior to that?
No, not until we started getting into Iraq.
Gotcha.
We weren't into Iraq yet. We were just do something. Then it started to narrow to Afghanistan, and then Iraq came in the picture. The one thing I will tell you that did help me out and about on the streets of the Middle East, on the streets of bad guy land, which I have a lot of time outside of combat units. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've got a lot of time without any kind of overhead, without any kind of QRF, without any kind of anything, just me running around bad guy land. It was my time being on the streets as a teenager. The interactions you have with people, how to stay alive. They all mesh. Everything was there. So at that level, it was clear. When you come up to this level, of course, no junction. Once we started planning, what are we going to do with Iraq? It came into being as well again with the question of how do you influence somebody to do something? In special operations, we landed, somebody got hurt. We did our things. We took off. In the infantry, we came in mass. Somebody got hurt. We did our thing and took off. None of us had stayed. Panama, we didn't stay. Now we were going to stay someplace. And that would be the first time that all those would come together. The street smarts, the language, and my experiences would come together. So in the Joint Staff, we ended up cranking papers. Then I got asked to go to the Vice President's staff. Again, I was going to get out, Mark. Here we are again. I only came in 5 years. Special operations kept me in. I said, it's time to get out. I put in my paperwork. And of course, anybody with the Middle East background got stop lost. So they weren't letting us out of the service after 9/11. So here we go again. So here I'm getting closer and closer to the point where I just stay forever. So no Middle East fails like myself and others who experienced, we were all stop lost. And then we began working the circuit. And slowly, I was actually sent to Israel by the chairman to do lessons learned from the Israelis' war on terror. And when I came back to the Pentagon to brief the chairman, the senior staff, I told them there's not a lot of lessons there except two. One, you can't fight your way out of this, right? Unless you're Russia or China, meaning how mean you'd have to be to fight your way out of this kind of a war. I mean, just crush. Our system doesn't do that. Two, the big enemy is not terror. It's higher than that. And of course, I got some pushback from very senior people when I said that.
Elaborate on that for me. I've always been under the presumption, like the war on terror itself will never end. As long as there are people in this world who have some sort of free will to do harm and believe in an ideology that is, for lack of a better term, anti-West, let's just call it, right? It's not anti-Christian, whatever. Just, there's always going to be people that are going to have a radical notion of what to do. Now being able to be radicalized on the internet and everything else is going to continue that going. So you're never going to end the war on terror. All you're going to do is mitigate the amount of consequence that is allowed to happen. So when you say, it's a bigger thing, like, can you elaborate?
Yeah, sure. I said, because all my years in Israel and traveling through bad guy land up to this point, namely the Middle East, right, it showed me that how mean and how cruel these leaders could be in these other countries. Yet there's still this fire. Yet incidents still happen. Yet people still fight back. So, okay, the schwacking is okay, killing and all that. And I'm all for it. I think the homeland is much safer today for how we've conducted since 9/11. I'm all for that. But there becomes a certain point in time in the ground where you got to do something else. If you really want this to end, or you just want to mitigate it, or you just accepting that every year you're going to have to go fly around the world and hurt a few people. Whichever one of those directions you want to take decides ultimately how you form your policy and your actions back home in DC. There were those thinking, of course, in the emotional day of 9/11, the hell with it. We are gonna schwack and HVT until we have nothing else to do. And I told them at that time, That's a tricky thing. That's not a very solid ground. I think 20 years later, we all see, wow, okay, maybe there is something else we have to do if we really want to put these guys to rest. And the evidence is clear. We are still very active around the world, and I'm all for it. But look at the number of countries that have gone under, that have gotten worse, have imploded, you name it, right? So at the strategic level, it's that dynamic. At the tactical level, screw it. Let's do what we got to do. But I put that on the table early on, and I had some pretty heavy feedback. Senior guy.
Could you share some of the feedback? You don't have to say any names of who gave it to you. Just curious on what you were told.
Yeah, the feedback was mainly, well, really? Well, then, and it came almost some when they asked me about my trip to Israel. They said, what do the Israelis say? Well, I said, the Israelis call it whack-a-mole, mowing the grass. That's all they can do. They're killed. They kill without regard. Trust me, right? They fly all over the world and kill people. They're still fighting the same battle. So,
they've also been doing that for 2,000 years. It's part of their, that's the big thing I think people fail to understand. And I learned it when I went to Iraq and I went to Afghanistan. You realize this is a 2,000-year inbred culture. Since we've inhabited this planet, that area of the world has just lived differently. We've been a country for 250 years. They've got, a millennium on us of doing this. And living this way. And it's not the way we do things. And so they're just naturally better at it. Two, they're immune to it. And three, I think it boils down to, they don't conduct themselves with a grand desired end state the way we do. And even though we never had a grand desired end state for Afghanistan and Iraq, we knew it was going to end. We weren't just going to do this in perpetuity. At some point, we knew we had to make a decision where you were getting diminishing returns and the results weren't worth it. So, again, I don't.
You said it.
Yeah.
Mark, you just lined it out. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I work today at TC. That's exactly what I was thinking. And the pushback I got from inside the senior tank, they call it the tank, was, thank you, Colonel. I see, and you're not, you haven't commanded a lot of infantry brigades and battalions and all that kind of stuff, and we appreciate your input. But our mission right now is to figure out how to go hurt somebody and hurt them bad.
Well, again, but
yes, sir. I agree.
There's nobody who does what we do tactically better than what we do. That's not the issue. That's never been the issue. And it's funny, we sit here. And we'll look at this thing in this war in Ukraine with Russia. And I've told people repeatedly, and I'm torn, and I don't want to turn this into a political conversation, but my own personal feelings. I'm torn about how much more we should be supporting Ukraine in this whole thing. I said, because since the dawn of Russia, their entire military strategy has been walk into enemy bullets until they run out of them. That's their military strategy. It has been since they've been a country, and they're one of two countries on this earth that can literally win a war of attrition. One, they have the people. Two, their leadership does not care how many people die, period. We don't operate in that world.
Right.
We lost some 3,000 people on 9/11. We lost another 3,000 or 4,000 people in total KIA in the war on terror between Iraq and Afghanistan. And we'd had enough. Right. Russia will do this for years, and years. And it's just tactically, they're not after a decisive victory. That's what we were after 9/11, but that's what we're always after. That's why we train the way we do and fight the way we do, because we believe in shock and awe. We believe in tactical decisive victories. That ain't the case for a lot of other countries in this world. They're not about that world.
Exactly right. And it was that term itself that I dared raise that really got me the biggest ass chewing. Once I said that term inside the tank, I did say, we're not going to shock and awe our way out of this. That I started taking the hits, and it was okay. I mean, I had support in there. The J5 General Abizaid was and others, were on my side. But I was just letting them know that we're in a much longer, bigger war than you think.
Yes.
And I also brought up the term Iran, and again, like you say, that's a whole nother cast. That's a beer tall when I come meet you and we have a sit down line. No, I did. I said that our focus. I understand what happened on 9/11. It's ugly. We want to get those bastards. I want to be first in the door. I want to be first on the ground. But there's a much bigger fight out there, and that we're going to face. And they didn't want to hear it at the time. The emotion
nobody
wouldn't
did.
allow
No, listen. And why, in retrospect, 90% of everybody in Congress voted pro-Iraq, because nobody wanted to hear anything at the time. Like, go come and kick ass, and we'll deal with the rest of it. We'll sort it all out later. But again, you're not going to kill an ideology. The same way no one's killed American patriotism, as much as we try from the inside out, different conversation, as much as no one's killed them, it's the same reason why you're not going to kill terrorism.
Right. And I ran into this headlong once. So I did that. We got through 9/11. We killed a lot of trees, made a lot of projects. As you all know, the course took us to Afghanistan first, and then we started going down the road to Iraq. Road to Iraq, by that time, I was in the vice president's office, Cheney's office, and they were leading the charge on taking out Saddam Hussein. They weren't leading the charge to the war per se, but they were definitely leading the charge to take out Saddam for whatever the reasons were. And I got caught up in that, not in a good way, but one of your other guests, Jaime Martinez, was on, and Jaime and I were both in the office at the same time together, and both of us asked to go to war. Jaime to a combat unit. I, as a Middle East FAO, said, hey, this is where I need to be there. I don't know what I'll do, but I need to be there. And in the whole run up to that, I was proffering the same thing. I said, I can see you want to take out Saddam. I said, but who's going to deal with Iraq? And there was a lot of pushback. This is another story, but nobody wanted to hear it. They just wanted to get rid of Saddam. And my whole purpose, which is what I was trained to do in school to do, they didn't send me to grad school and all these years downrange, was to offer different opinions. That's why I was brought in. I was the only operator on the staff. Jaime was in the front office. I was actually in the vice president's office saying, hey, policy-wise, if I were you, I would do this. And there was myself, another colonel, and an SF guy that did counterterror. And we were offering different views. All we're doing is offer a different view. That's not disloyal, as you know, right?
No, I mean, good leaders want those people in the room.
Yeah, offering different view. You brought me as an operator. I'm telling you right now, if I was on the ground, I had X, Y, Z, I'd do Z, not X. But I get X, but I would lean towards Z with the money. Anyway, so I got a chance to go downrange. And once we started dealing with Iraqis face to face, and it could have been anywhere. It could have been Colombia. Once you deal face to face with someone, which I now teach the lieutenants and the NCOs going downrange, that you're really in a negotiation. The minute that the ramp goes down, whether it's a CH-47, a C-130, whatever it is, the minute that ramp goes down, you're in a negotiation. And this is what we like. We didn't understand. We were trying to proffer on them a system that they'd never seen before in their life. And we're out by ourselves. I ran all over Iraq, my first tour by myself with a small group of people in civilian clothes without any military whatsoever. And my biggest threat, besides almost getting killed once or twice by inadvertent mean or mad Iraqis, was, of course, U.S. forces. Friendly fire was my biggest danger there, because nobody in uniform could understand why somebody not in uniform was running around the country by themselves. Or I was with an Iraqi local person, and something right out of what's that movie? I forgot the movie. It happened to me more than once. So, that's what we as FAOs were offering in those times. Not how to beat the bad guys. You guys got that under control, but what it all means later. So 9/11 took me there, took me Joint Staff, took me to the White House, and it took me to Iraq on my first tour. And like I said, there I was mainly building institutions or dealing with the Iraqi populace, and came out of there 10, 15 pounds lighter, a bunch of days in the hospital in Jordan to get better, and then back to the States. Second tour, attaché tour. And there I was back in Tel Aviv again, and we went through the 2006 war. So we had this massive dust up in Israel and Lebanon again. And then I went back to Iraq after that for a second tour. And that tour I was on the ground in combat as an advisor to a senior Iraqi ground forces commander. So, I mean, it just doesn't stop. You don't get any, there's no break in anything.
And again, I mean, I'm curious about your on the ground experience in combat, but I'm also, the question that's burning in my mind right now, because I don't have the depth of experience that you do. Look, there's always a gap between strategic goals and tactical goals, right? Like the challenge is to bridge that gap. Sometimes you get them to line up, right? Sometimes you're fortunate enough where everything works out, and it's few and far between, but it does happen. Right. And in the same respect, more often than not, they don't. So, while you're in these rooms with all these think tanks, and boy, it makes me nauseous because groupthink takes over the military like you wouldn't believe. Beyond that, again, another different conversation.
Yep.
I'm curious, how much were you charged with bridging that gap? And when you went on the ground in combat and you have this in the back of your head, these strategic things that don't align, how do you reconcile that?
I have to tell you, Mark, I know exactly right. We don't want to, dovetail or octopus arm ourselves to the, Neathland, but that's exactly the dilemma I faced the latter 10 years in the military. I'm facing it right now with TERRA Search too, as well. No, that's exactly right. You'll be sitting right in there. You got you got the notebook on the knee. You're listening to the commander or the counterpart, in his language, express his feelings. And it's very obvious by this time, the apparent disconnect A to Z. And I will tell you, it's its own study, like you said, and it's not just groupthink. It's unwillingness to offer the truth. It's an unwillingness to say something different. It's an unwillingness to maybe get it. If you don't know, you say, well, if I don't know, why don't I just be quiet? Well, nobody knows in that goddamn room. I mean, when you're in the middle of Iraq and the heyday of the fight, nobody in that room knows. That's the whole purpose of the circular conversation. Nobody knows. So, folks, I will be honest with you. I see great bravado at the tactical level, amazing heroism, amazing stories. I love the books. I love the movies. I love what you do. But reaching a certain level, folks start to turn a little bit into it. I call it the tactical warrior strategic wimp syndrome. Folks just don't express the intense point or feeling inside at upper levels like they do when we're out in the battlefield together or in training and in the dirt and the mud. They don't. I don't know why. I wasn't afraid to, but I also couldn't do it all the time either, else I shoot myself right out of that picture. But I spent a lot of time at very senior levels advising and recommending or offering that if you go down A, you get B. I hear that you want C, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to get B or whatever B. They want B, they get C.
Right.
That's a human issue we could talk about another time. And I watched that whole thing in Iraq go crazy. Not from the beginning. Nobody knew. Look, we were all big believers. We were big believers. The first guys who went in Afghanistan. We were big believers in Iraq. We were selling the democratic pill. We were selling your life is going to get better pill. And, it hurts. It hurts now X years later to watch how it's all turned out. Not just for the guys killed, but it hurts just for the fact of the incredible amount of energy and stuff that we watched people put into and zero. We get tactical results with the HVT kill, duh.
Of course.
But you don't get it otherwise.
It's, and I've said told this little vignette on the show several times, but I remember sitting in Iraq during my first deployment, and I had worked and stood up the ISAF brigade in Iraq. It was one of my my first experience there, and I remember I'm working through building this support battalion for the ISAF brigade and teaching these Iraqis how to fight and do everything else. And, it's a daily grind. And, I'm a mid-level captain and I'm working with an Iraqi colonel and this, that, and the other every day. And I remember remarking to a major who we were just sitting there, shooting the shit one day. And I said, I was just befuddled. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is never going to, doesn't anybody realize this idea is never going to work? And I could remember just saying, they don't want it like we want it. Like, they don't want it bad enough, Right. We work our asses off of this. We want it because we want to get the hell out of here, right? Like, we've had enough. It's 2005. We've been at war for 2 years in Iraq and 4 years in Afghanistan. We know, we got to do this to get the hell out. They don't want it like we do. I was like, why are we even wasting our time? And the major looked at me and just said, small victories, Mark. You just got to take the small victories where you can get them, and that's it. And that's the only thing that keeps you going, right? That and staying alive, but... I was able to have in that moment a little bit of that strategic tactical gap recognition, and you just shake it off and you get back in there the next day and just work your ass off and try to do your very best. But in that moment, as young as I was able to see that there is a certain amount of this that amounts to nothing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is the great dilemma. This is one of the things that's interesting about my breadth of experience, Nam to Iraq. It's like I told you, half our basic training didn't graduate. The other half didn't know where they were. Other couldn't speak English. Didn't matter. Now, fast forward to where we are today with the intelligence level and the education and the drive of where we're with today. I love this generation of soldiers and whatever the gender in uniform today. It's phenomenal. It's so cool to be with them in the work I do now. But the big difference is they want it to be bigger. They want to see how it works. They want to know where it goes. And like you were saying, our day, okay, do what you're told, move out. Small victories, maybe. I'm not a big fan of that term. But when you have the intellectual level and the understanding of the folks of the force today, like we do, which is not in my early day, that group wants to see the bigger picture. They want to know where it goes. I was talking one day out loud in class at Fort Bragg a couple months ago, saying, "Hey, you should really look at well, actually last year, because Afghanistan was still up." I said, "Look at it. Look at some of the key points of Afghanistan." One of the SF team leaders stood up and said, "I don't want to, and I'm instructing my guys not to." I'm like, "Why not?" And he goes, "Why would I?" Right. Why would I 15 years later want to know why we haven't gotten there? I don't want to know that. And he got me. I have to tell you, not agreeing or disagreeing with the response, it got me. I looked at the ambassador next to me and the station chief across from me and said, "Wow, holy, look at the level this guy's thinking," right? Someone else can argue the point, but I was like, wow, he just didn't want to even go there because he had his job to do, and that's what he wanted to do, and he wanted to get his guys home safely. But he did, a big piece of him wanted to see where it all went, what it all meant. Even the NOM guys tell us that. NOM guys today are crippled from that forever. They're crippled by what happened and whatnot. So yeah. I would also tell you, go ahead, buddy.
No, yeah,
this is a whole track. It's a fascinating track that few people express.
It's frustrating because on one hand, we shouldn't miss strategic goals as often as we do with how tactically proficient we are, right? Like the two don't add up. It's kind of like, as a football analogy, it's kind of like, leading the league in yardage and continually, moving the ball down the field and yet never scoring enough points to win a football game. It doesn't add up. There's something going wrong. And, listen, the good part and the bad part about our country, right? We rotate leaders every 4 or 8 years, whatever it is. And you are promoting some pretty dramatic shifts in ideology when you change the leadership, and you're constantly chasing your tail. As a good friend of mine, Mike Jason, who was a former guest on this show, once said, "We didn't fight a 20-year war in Afghanistan. We fought 21-year wars in Afghanistan." Because every time a new unit would come in and a new leadership would come in, we'd slightly change the focus, and so you're never really on the same path all the way. And that's part of the reason why this stuff happens. And outside of the political spin of everything that goes on, which, as I've gotten later in my career, you find more and more nauseating, because as you move up through the ranks and, you see things at an 06 level now, and you're starting to get into that strategic purview, and you realize how decisions are made. When you're a lieutenant and a captain, you don't really give a rip. Like, you just keep your battalion commander off your ass, make sure your troops are taken care of, they like you, and your paycheck clears, which, it does. Life is pretty easy. But when you get to a higher level, and you are much higher as an 06 than I'll ever be. But that said, you just start to realize how the cookie crumbles and how tied your hands really are at certain points. And these are all existential philosophical things that, at a certain level, many of our audience who are PFCs or NCOs are like, what the fuck is he talking about? Yeah, I get it. But because I have somebody here who can have the conversation, I'm just curious. And I'll tell you, go ahead.
When I went to the War College out of Iraq, right? So the War College told us, National War College here in Fort McNair. I'm in Arlington, Virginia. They called us the angry class. Here's these guys calling us the angry class. Get this. So we were the largest group post-combat deployment group coming to the school since Vietnam. So at the end of Vietnam, folks coming in and out doing their yearly War College stick or coming from all sorts of government, but no one had come from all these pre-combat, combat tours into the school. First time, 2004 NDU, right? Mm-hmm. So they called us the angry class. Why? Because they were proffering very much what the system offers. School, do this, do that. And everyone in the room, not everyone, that's not fair. Many of the students, myself included, in the auditorium are like, what world are you talking about? What world are you talking about? That wasn't the bad part. The bad part was, okay, that said, the difference is felt once we started offering insights and things to be looked at and how we might go forward, given the war is still on. We're still fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. There was no place to take it. Nobody was up for listening. Nobody was up for adjusting. To wit, we put together a book. A bunch of us got together a book. It was sponsored by the college. It was going to be written. First from the Fight, it was called. Folks were going to tell their tales, the combat tales, or the pre-war run-up tales, the combat tales, the air combat tales, all the services, and then the post-conflict tales. So you can put those all together in one neat book. It was called First from the Fight. They didn't go through with it. They let it drop off. The college didn't go through with it. But we don't have to get too far into that. You're right. It's very tricky. I will tell you, I think your point is, and you're spot on. It's very tricky at the street strategic level. I can't say enough on that. And my second tour in Iraq was senior advising the Iraqis for the fight against Baghdad. Sadr started up in Basra, as you know.
Yeah.
The fight came to Baghdad.
Yep.
It was the U.S. forces that really carried the fight in Basra. The British refused to leave the FOB. Then it came up to Baghdad. I was negotiating. I was an insurgent negotiator. General Petraeus and Ambassador Crocker had a very small cell that was actually talking to guys killing us. Well, the guys running the guys killing us. Because as you know, we all know the story of the awakening, right? Where the Sunni decided that, all right, we're losing this battle. We're going to pony up with the Americans for X amount of time. And we know today it's only X amount of time. So the Sunni come to our side. We start giving them yellow bands and some weapons and some money. And of course, a lot of them come. There's over 100,000 join the cause. We call that the awakening. Lots of stories about that. We all know it. Well, we were the level above. We were charged with, okay, we see what's happening tactically. How do we turn this monster of a movement into something strategically directional for the country and to get us out of Iraq? I was that. I was one of two faces that were doing that. So I'm meeting with these guys, these guys that are killing us, literally, both the tactical guys and the guys paying them. I know there's no school for it. There's no school for it. Again, another podcast. And the sense I gained out of that very much is they did not have an understanding of us, and their non-understanding of us was leading them to keep killing us at random and large. And I didn't quite know what to do with that as I learned it. I gained it because they didn't understand the words America can't do. I would tell them, well, we can't do that. We can't do that. And the guy mostly guys would look at me and say, hey, dude, you're an American. Don't tell us what you can't do. If you keep doing that, we're going to keep fighting you. Okay, well, how do you translate that into something? I mean, I haven't figured that out today, although I still bump into it in this career. And it was out of that combat tour that I said, that was my 30-year point. And I said, okay, I think I've done my country right, been a downrange enough. Even the times in Israel on the West Bank had a lot of hazardous duty time to them. 2006 war was the most intense shelling I've ever seen. Only thing more would be Ukraine. Iraq, we got a lot of rockets. We got a lot of mortar. It wasn't fun. It was close, but the northern border of Israel, we had, 300 millimeters coming in, 240 millimeters coming in. That only me and my team were allowed up there, up through that. So I figured at 2009, that's enough. Good to go. 30 plus. Wow. Still trying to find the NCOs that were with me when I was enlisted. Haven't had much success yet, but I want to find them and say, hey, turned out okay.
I got to ask you, I'm just curious. What, in your opinion, because I'm sure in those rooms, you're sitting there with people who are still in uniform, right? Flag officers and everything. And, the guys who are advising the civilians, and you're probably the low man on the totem pole, just being a lowly 06, you little puke you. But what happens to folks who still wear a uniform but work in that environment so long that they seem to lose their sense of what really happens at the ground level that helps facilitate and create that gap or expand it and not close it? Because it would seem to me like, I feel like you and I think alike in the sense, just from talking to you, like I'd be the center in the room you realize like when you do this on the ground, this is going to be I understand what you're getting at here, but you're not looking at the second and third order of effects. And I'd be sitting there screaming that, and people would and I'd be looking at these guys like, aren't you like a infantry ranger, like airborne? Like, haven't you been doing this? Don't you know dudes who lost their lives doing this kind of thing? And you're now going to send people to do the same thing that you just, what happens to the disconnect? Where does it go?
I'm not sure. I think that's a great discussion all by itself. The only thing I will say about my takeaway, I hate to put it in bumper sticker terms, but I did find that the tactical level, the warriors are all there, great Americans. Oh my God. But something on the way up, something as they grow older and higher, I call it the strategic wimp syndrome. And they're not. These are the brightest of the bright. I mean, it's so fascinating just to talk and sit with these guys one-on-one or when they're having a meal, with things that live. But inside the room of rooms, I guess you would call these things the room of rooms, and all the pachyderms are in there. I honestly don't know exactly what transpires in their own thinking, their own thoughts. It's weird.
Yeah, my uneducated assessment is pretty simple. And I would just say this. They lose their balls because they're not the guy in charge anymore, right? Like, it's one of those things where, you know, if you do that personality spectrum thing, the IDJ, whatever the hell it is, I don't know, Myers-Briggs, but I never subscribed to that crap anyway. But it's just one of those things where it's like, look, you know, certain people get to that level because they drive, and yet they follow the rules and the people in front of them because and here's the one flaw in my career, and I openly admit this. I didn't play the game well, right? If you said something stupid to me, I let you know it was stupid. And I did it when it happened. Like, I didn't really have the couth to pull you aside and go, yeah, you might, you know, this, you know, it's just like, no, hey, that's dumb. Don't do that. And, you know, I believe that it's certainly, in retrospect now, you know, has prevented me from doing certain things in my career. But in the same respect, it's like those guys get in those rooms and they kowtow to what they believe and what they know for the sake of, I guess, what they believe the greater good, or at least just to do what the guy in charge says, and no one wants to speak up. And that, to me, is disingenuous leadership.
Can be. I think you can also, on a letter of credit to the folks that get to that level and have to be involved with these kind of decisions. First off, one, they're not easy. Two, perhaps there is a way to make it happen in a different way. And you get right. I mean, that's when I'm sitting there thinking and watching, kind of sometimes feeling like you do, getting a little hyper. And, you know, it's hard to come off the street like I did, even though I became an 06, and not keep sort of like what you were expressing. I've always got that edge of me. My wife knows that she's.
Listen, I'm a New York kid. I'm a New York Italian guy who doesn't keep his mouth shut. Right. So it wasn't going to change.
She goes, don't yell first, talk first, and yell. Like, okay. I mean, it takes time, but there's also possibly very fairly a sense that, in that room at this time, I'm not getting anywhere. It does me no good to say, hey, check out the stuff on my chest. I'm warning you, this is a bad way to go. It might be that they're, you know, and if they can get a moment of control, a moment of some of the control, then they can run. And that as it's proven, that's a risk, because the longer you wait things, the longer you don't control them. This has happened both with bad guys and good guys alike, whether it be politically, whether it be, you know, I've watched the Israelis foster Hamas. We fostered guys in Iraq, which are now killing Iraqis. Or politically, we've watched people say, well, just tolerate him. And then, oops, now he's in charge. So there's a risk to that. But sometimes when I'm sitting in those rooms, and I have been privy to very senior, high level stuff, I say to myself, wow, I feel like you do. But I say, you know what? I'm just hoping and thinking that if they can get this at the right time and place, they can make it go the way I would think they'd want to go. That's all I would offer. Yeah, that's all we can offer. I mean, again, I'm on one hand, I'm fascinated by it. Yeah. I'm fascinated by, you know, the whole thing, the relationships and, you know, how it all comes to pass. On the other hand, I just take a very pragmatic, simplistic point of view that if you're going to be a damn leader, then speak up and be a leader, because that's what my soldiers would want me to do. You know, if something's out of line, my soldiers want me to tell them if something's out of line, that, hey, you're putting Joe in a bad spot. And I just, you know, I've always fallen back on that simple premise, right? Like those guys who stand behind me in formation, I care more about them than whatever is next for me. And that's always something that, good, better, or indifferent, got me in trouble otherwise. You know, I've always just looked at it under that vein. That's how I put my head on the pillow, feeling like I made the right decision. Yeah, you're not alone. I mean, you're not alone on that. I mean, there's many like that, but taking care of you and taking care of your guys, you know, it's always sometimes can be a critical juncture. Right? Yeah. And there's a divergence there. Usually there's a divergence, because sometimes taking care of you means not taking care of them. And I never wanted to be in that position. I will offer, though, that when I am with the younger generation now a lot in the consulting and teaching and mentoring I do make it a point to get folks to strategic levels, to get them up to know that there is that esosphere. There are a certain percentage that absolutely want no part of it. I'm looking for Abu. Fine, go get them. Or whatever the place in the world they'll be, whatever the name fits. But there are an overwhelmingly large number of those who would really like to know how this all works out. And that's pretty cool. Get rid of the riddle and wrapped in the enigma, wrapped in the dilemma and everything else, and untie that thing. It's like Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation. Little knot here, you know, just go figure this out. So But it's good to see that at least guys, especially special operations guys, they want to know what it all means. They're in the third or fourth pump. Okay, I've done this one. I got it. I got the tribal leader. I got the shake. Okay, so what else can I do while I'm out there? Now, what would be nice if somebody at a position of senior policy would take that and say, oh, you know what? We can get you to do this while we're out there, rather than saying, no, stay in your lane, call you when we need you, which is legal, by the way. I mean, that's a legal designation. That's how our system's set up. It's tricky. We would like to see more of the former, but right now the latter is Roger out. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you want to come home alive, and that's okay too.
Foreign internal defense, right up there with coin, is two words that sound great and brief well. Boy, did we love them. Boy, did we love them.
Okay.
Anyway,
you're right.
Okay. We won't go down that road. Let me ask you, in reference to the time when you spent negotiating with bad dudes, wherever it was.
Yeah.
Most difficult part of that. I mean, I know it's hard to ask such a broad question, but
no, it's a good one. It's a good one. Two answers. It's a good one because I thought of it a lot. First one is being able to take what they say, and you just got to take what they say. I mean, they're not.
How much can you believe a liar?
Well, first off, I'm not so sure going in that anyone's putting that someone's a liar on the table.
Okay.
Put it this way. I mean, I'll explain that. Lying in the fact that we've grown up with for those who did Iraq and Afghanistan, when they say it's not my fault, I didn't say it. Okay, yeah,
Inshallah.
Right. Okay, that's one side of it. But the other part of it is when the guy is truly of the world he's from, and he's grown up with a certain belief, and he's being told what to do by his gang or has signed on for whatever reason. I don't take it as lying, and you don't want to as a negotiator, because you got to deal with whatever points on the table, which you don't have time as a negotiator to spend a lot of time on the psychology. I mean, that's movie stuff. You got to really get to the points on the table. So being able to take that one. Number two, is you have to have something to offer at the end of the day. It's called a negotiation for this simple point. We don't teach this very well. It should be taught many more of our schools. You got to have something to offer. And you don't want to lead too early with it. Too many of my partners and peers would offer something as soon as they sat down. I would call it very much a Western weakness. Offer, and they're doing it right now with Putin. They're doing it right now with Xi in China. You name it. Don't offer anything until you see where this thing can even go. So being able to take the hard part to your face, and then lastly, being able to tell him or offer at the table that this is not going to go well, and he replies back for who? So you're thinking, hey, we got you to be a 72-hour non-schwack policy so you could come in and negotiate with us, and vice versa. 72 hours, game is up. And he looks at you directly and says, okay, for who? After 72 hours, who's going to be the bad end of the stick? That's pretty intense stuff. It's pretty intense stuff. I mean, there aren't ready answers. There aren't necessarily like the kind of talking you and I can do over this call. I don't really have answers. And it's very uncomfortable to be able to sit there and go, shit, I don't have an answer. You can't do that.
Yeah.
When you're in that position.
There's gamesmanship in all of this, right? Like there's in any negotiation, you don't want to lose leverage. I mean, that's the key to winning a negotiation is leverage.
But you got to have it.
Well, that's
like you said, right on your podcast. You just said it, right? You got to have the leverage.
Yeah,
and you know what that is.
It's not a position I'm often familiar with, having leverage. Trust me. So, and anybody who's ever been married knows that leverage is never on your side.
It was a fascinating thing to do in my career, and it's someday I'll get it down on paper. Yeah, it's hard to describe that whole time period of dealing with those guys. I met a lot of guys in Orange. I was on their flights, the Conair flights. I was traveling outside of Iraq to meet people in hotels and apartments. I'm still not sure I've put it all together, to be honest with you.
I mean, there's still a part of me that almost seems that feels so Hollywood-like, that like, oh, we have this high-level negotiation with a guy who's actively sending people to kill American troops, and we're going to sit down over a cup of coffee and try to talk this thing out. Like, it almost seems like not real.
Yeah, but that it was, and that I didn't feel like, but I did learn that if the business approach was the ultimate approach that you had to have in a way, and we're not taught that, we're not schooled in that. So Everything at the end of the day is business with that level of that for the most part. Look, the true believers like the Ayatollahs and all those, like for instance, the toughest negotiation I ever had to do was not with a killer. It was not with a stone cold killer. It was with the guys that were sending them to do it. The information guys, the religious guys. I sat down with a couple of those. That was hard.
Did you find that they were smarter than you expected?
Very, very. In their own world, in their own way. Okay? In their own world, in their own way. And you got to give a lot of credit to that. Not Harvard smart, not coming out here to fix they
didn't go to National Defense University or anything.
No.
But what they're smarter in is their culture and how they operate in it, and we were on wrong turf there.
The ability to move words and to mix messages and to come to a coherent thought was unbelievable. Was unbelievable to me.
I don't know if you can answer this, but I'll ask it anyway because I'm curious. When you talk about leverage, like, did you ever get into a conversation with somebody where you had the leverage or the ability to turn around? If you don't do X, I'm going to send an entire fucking brigade of soldiers through your area to destroy everything that you know possible. Like, is that like, because that feels like a really badass move to say in a negotiation. Twice you did it? That's nice.
Twice.
See, that's
but twice. Actually, once by me, once by a brigade commander, I saw it. And the brigade commander did it in Solder City. What happened was we built these councils. Local councils, right? That was my first trick because I came out of the White House and I couldn't get to a combat unit like Jamie did, like Jaime did. We built these and it went south. Solder took the council building from us. He took it away. So I went in there to say what happened, and to do the negotiation to get it back. And we brought in on this few days, I had a brigade commander in there in uniform on purpose, sitting next to me. So I'm the guy in that little jacket with the shirt.
Appearances matter. Yeah.
Right. And absolutely. Here's the firepower. And he got very perturbed at the pace and the tone of negotiations. Said, screw this. And he went.
The brigade commander got perturbed.
Yeah. He went patting. Right. He went patting on him. And literally, I mean, it was right out of the movie. And the takeaway that I got, the most fascinating thing I got was not one eyeball, not one wink batted on the other side of the table.
What did he say? Do you remember his words, what he said?
Of that, I'm a United States Brigade Commander. I have the most powerful armored formations in the world. Literally, he went, just so as you just said, he said, I have a very powerful force at my disposal. You have taken this building from us. We want it back. We've been very nice. We try to negotiate with you. We built the building. We paid for it. It's for the benefit of all the people, Solder City, not just you, the mullahs. and so many times, if these negotiations don't go right, we're going to take it back anyway. So, it was unscripted. I was trying to tab him underneath the table. Hey, don't go that route. But the most important thing, the most fascinating thing that happened was none of those guys blinked. Not one.
So wait, when you see that, none of them blink. Right. Are you like, shit, he just overplayed our hand?
Number one, yeah. And number two is, what do you say next? Yeah. Technically, if you put that on the table, you should basically get up and walk out of the room.
Yeah.
He could get up and walk out of the room. I couldn't. That was a dilemma. Now, for me, I can't get up and leave the room because that was unscripted. If that was scripted, we knew it was coming. We both get up, walk out. Okay, cut, right? It wasn't scripted. So, okay, now what? Where am I in this position?
Yeah, he just left you with your you-know-what hanging out.
Right. I'm sent by the big guy at the palace to do this, not you. You were there to back me up. Anyway, and the second time is I did myself also, not that way, the Hollywood way, I would say. I did put it on the table and said, and this is the classic Vietnam scenario. I said, you can't beat us, and we anytime we won, I told you what we would do to include you personally and all of your family and, all of your forces. And the response coming back across the table is, yes, we know this. We know this already. We know this. We take this into our calculus, but we also know you're not staying. And we also know you're Americans. Meaning, if you're Americans, we know you don't operate this way. You can't kill us all because you won't. We know you don't do that.
Yeah, God.
Right. And there are responses. Those really leave you kind of quiet for a minute. And you can't stay too quiet for too long because then you lose the power. But this is fascinating, actually. You're taking me to things that I did, I didn't, haven't been thought of in a while. Exactly.
I mean,
We could say that to Russia tomorrow. Would it matter? I don't know.
No, it wouldn't. And again,
Right.
you know, I have this conversation with people all the time. I said, listen, Russia's not interested. Russia and China are not interested in going toe to toe with us. It's not in their best interest. It's in no one's best interest, and they realize that.
They don't have
They
to.
know they can win so many other ways that they don't have to do that. Right. They don't want to do it because, for the most part, they lose. Right. At the end of the day, it only ends in one option to annihilate, and that's using nuclear. And no one's really interested in going there. For as much as, you know, we all stick our you-know-what's out about that, like, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. At the end of the day, and that's
a leverage point.
It is a leverage point, but it's as you said, it's weird how our greatest value and our greatest strength in trying to provide some level of humanity to war has put us at our biggest disadvantage on a routine basis, because and I think you just encapsulated it for me, and it just sort of hit me, the light went on. Yeah. That is why our strategic gap always exists. Yeah. Because we don't go to the level of using full-on tactical force to achieve a strategic objective, because at some point we will pull back and go, this is too much. And we believe in a law of proportionality, right? We don't fire a mortar round at an anthill. We don't expend that kind of ammunition on one dude. We never have, we never will. So
it's funny. It's funny. I found myself, because it's exactly right. I found myself funny. I thought when I came on board on deck, I was very much as I told you, in the big rooms, as a strategic guy in the block. You can't kill him to success. The Israelis have proven it. And I know we're enamored with the Israelis, but they finally get it. They finally come to the conclusion it's the politics, stupid. But now I actually found myself, as a latter part of the tour, especially my last tour, I was getting very angry and very mean. And I started to believe that you could bomb. I wanted to kill more, or correction. I wanted to see more killed. I mean, I myself was changing because I was getting so frustrated with the effort, the purpose of our effort, and where it was getting us to. So the big strategic negotiator, was saying, we got to schwack more of these guys.
Yeah. I
said, how did I get to this position? You know, so from that, but it's tricky. It was, and it also told me it was time to go too. That I had.
I get that.
But sooner or later.
I'm going to ask you a loaded question here.
You haven't yet?
Well played. See, there's your negotiation tactics coming in.
There you go.
You just got me off my footing. Did we win in Iraq and Afghanistan?
No, not at all.
All right. I mean,
I heard it was really bad.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll tell you. I don't know.
Look, tactically we won, right? Tactically we won.
I go back to Iraq a lot, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard. I have very, 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 I don't call them friends, but close people on all sides of the spectrum. I can even talk to insurgents when I go back there now, or what was once them. It's hard. They look at you like, what happened? What happened? What happened? Why couldn't you do better? No matter what you say you did or would have done, they just don't get it. They don't get it. We're still America, though, but they don't get it. It's hard. I don't think we, now the word win to me would mean that we push forward a national interest in a certain direction that we wanted it to go. I don't see how you make that connection. That's how I evaluate that.
Nope, that is fair. Again, you know, you're not going to convince me there was a tactical engagement that we lost, right? At worst, a push, but you're not going to convince me that we lost any tactical engagement despite casualties and things of that nature. But, you know, again, to your point, and boy, that's so disheartening. Like, look, I would love to go back to Iraq at some point. I think it'd be cathartic for me. I think there would be a certain amount of
happy to take you. Come on, we should get a group together. We should go.
Listen. You know, to stand in this spot where, you know, we were ambushed and live through that again. You know, I've talked to Vietnam vets who've gone back and you know, other folks who have been able to go have that experience. On one hand, I don't want to go, but on the other hand, I would love to go and just remember it and be there for a minute again.
Yeah. It's important for families too, which is kind of what I'm doing now. I think families would benefit very much if there's something like that could happen.
Well,
and
yeah,
the family can see with it right now.
Right, you can see what I saw and what I lived through, and you know, and point out things of that nature. But you know, to hear from them, why couldn't you do better, is probably the most disappointing thing I think anybody could have said to America. Like, honestly, like, I mean, picture this transaction going down. It's the president of the United States, whichever one it is, and the president of Iraq or the parliament, whatever government structure they have right now, in a public forum, looking at the United States and just going, why couldn't you do why couldn't you do better than what you did? Look at where we are. Look what you left here for us. This is the best you could do. Like, is there a bigger insult we could receive in a public forum?
And it's still being asked. They would love to see us come in, and we still unfortunately have those in the government who think they can do it. They can aid their way out of this, or they can get it right. I'm like, I think as an American, you should always think that way, but I haven't seen the dots connected. But go for it. Go for it.
Wow.
Which is why now, with what I've gotten into, is actually a great healer and a great.
I wanted to transition to that, so let's talk about TERRA. TERRA Search MIA, looking for missing and fallen that are still out there. So I mean, how did you? What led you to this?
We want the community involved is the thing I'll put up front, right? We got skin in the game, and I want to get the community involved. Once you retire, you kind of say, what do I do in the next world? So I was doing some of the typical consulting, Beltway Bandit consulting. Okay, pays well, but it's, the oomph is not there all the time. I mean, I love working with the generation. I love working with the young gangs coming in. I'm driven by that like crazy still. But again, having been through what we've been through, it's a little hard to see how it all connects. And sometimes it gets, a little frustrating. So I said, I have to find something else. I can really wake up in the morning and I just want to get up in the morning and go for it. The age of my bones aside. So my my wife was stationed in Southeast Asia, and I became a spouse. That's the first thing you learn when you retire, is you become a spousal element. And she asked me, do I want to go? I'm like, yeah, I guess. I don't know what I'll do out there, but I'll go. And of course, when I got out there wasn't a lot to do. I couldn't come back to the States and do the normal consulting. And I did some writing and I did some computer consulting. But then I said, you know what? I'm going to travel. Oh, my God, look where I am. And I'm a military vet. I'm going to do military historical traveling. So I started. And one of the places I ended up was the island of Tarawa in the Gilbert Chains. The Gilberts were British sailors. And the Gilbert Chains, Republic of Basio, Tarawa. Tarawa is a very, unfortunately, famous site of a very bad invasion day for the Marines and the Army on a different island in World War II. Previous to that, it had been one of the first Marine Raider operations was out in that area, the MARSOC, current MARSOC. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, heck yeah, I'm going to do me some touring. Bangkok is incredible because it's 1 hour from any one of those places, maybe 3 from Fiji. I was on Tarawa. I bumped into a young lady. She gave me the battlefield tour. I got stuck out there anyway because the airlines ran out of gas. So we were going to be there for 3 or 4 days. And I did the tour. And while I was doing the tour, she said, do you want to meet someone that's digging up American soldiers? I'm like, what do you mean digging up American soldiers? I'm like, you serious? She goes, yeah. I said, yeah, cool. Show me. She told me she was Kiwi. She wasn't. Anyway, she introduced me to her as an American. And she had just found the first 2 Marines, full skeletons, laid out in her room on this long table.
Wow.
And I said, what the hell? Are you kidding me? She says, yeah. I said, that guy was over 6 foot and that guy was this tall and literally almost every bone there is, which is incredibly rare. So I said, who are you? She goes, well, you were staying here, so have dinner with me, and staying in the same small hotel. And she belonged to a private NGO at the time, History Flight. And I said, how does someone get in this business? Because check this out, Mark. I had went to JPAC at the time, called JPAC, across the street from the embassy in Bangkok. I had all my badges. I'm a retired colonel. I walked into their headquarters, saw all the pictures on the wall of all their ops in Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. I said, hey, I want to volunteer. I make rice. I clean tires. I'm a mean gate guard. I'll stand there all day long, tell people yes, no. I can run your op, whatever it is. I got experience. He said, nah, we don't take volunteers. I'm like, yeah. Shut up. I'm a veteran. He said, no, Department of Defense does not allow volunteers. Come out. Like, what? The DOD doesn't allow.
I thought we were an all volunteer army.
Right. I didn't know what to say. And this was an Air Force fail. So we hit it off right away. I said, I don't know. He goes, I'm not, sir, I apologize. I don't know what to tell you, but I can't formally, if you kind of happen to be out there, maybe. I said, well, who are all these people lined up with buckets? She goes, well, those are villagers and we kind of pay them a stipend and they're brought in by a local tribal guy. Okay. So I was serious. I got so mad at us. And so while I'm on Tara, I see this young gal. She goes, well, you can volunteer with us. We're looking for people. I said, okay, cool. Next thing you know, I'm moving buckets, just dirt. I'm cleaning things. I'm doing recovery missions in Europe and back out on Tara and you name it. But I'm kind of a senior guy. So I tell the owner, I say, hey, let's take this bigger. Let's take this to the big guys. So we saw McCain's office and a bunch of other congressional offices, but it was a tricky place to work. The DOD is the DOD. So I went with them for 4 or 5 years. And then once I came back to the States, I started working again, and, COVID hit. And someone called me over COVID and said, "Hey, why don't you do your own gig, man? You don't need to work for anybody else. You can run a gig, do it." I was like, "I don't know, run my own gig? I don't want the hassle." And they said, "Do it." I said, "Screw it, I'm doing it." And I formed TERRA, and I built it on 2 things. First off, you most certainly can volunteer with us, and we want the veteran community. I don't like going without medics, UXO, and a MacGyver type. I want a good E6, E7 that can build things that people have never dreamt, right? Because we go in some really tough places.
Sure.
Secondly, we're going to beef up the numbers. We're going to professionalize this. The archaeological world is nichey. It's kind of tricky. We have all of our operational acumen. We got all of our institutional acumen, so we can put together a great system, not a bureaucratic system, but a system that can really take this to the next level. So I founded it on those 2 principles. And really what got my gourd, Mark, is, all I did was, as a young soldier in Vietnam, is hear about this, the cries in the night. I'm talking in Korea, my day was fighting, crying, assaults, incidents everywhere. And a lot of it, guys in the middle of the night would scream out someone's name and he wasn't there and coming home. Fast forward to Iraq. Thank God the numbers we have from Iraq and Afghanistan, I think, are formally 5 or 6 on the DOD website. So thousands to 6. And I saw throughout my career that people weren't really getting the old black flag there. They weren't, the thing we never forget was kind of dying in the dust. And it is. So I said, well, the hell with that. I'm not going to let that happen. That's not going to happen on my watch while I can still lift things. And my body's pretty beat up.
Right.
So that was the philosophy I put it together with. I went and reached out to some of the guys I work with from this other outfit and others that I met. They were wholly behind it. They're excited. I started out as for-profit because it was simple. Now we're almost nonprofit, finished the nonprofit stuff. And we've been out several times already, Sicily twice. I got Germany on deck next year. And I'm trying to get Southeast Asia, given my initial heritage as an enlisted guy. But it's a tricky business. DOD is still tricky. I'll be honest with you. Trying to get into the VA, tricky. But we're want to build a coalition of any veteran outfit out there that would win-win. Anybody that participates with us is win-win. How do you not win by having this on your website or participating with us and going down range? Someone has got to do this because they're going to get left. I can tell you right now, the numbers are too high. They're going to disappear in the dust. And I find that wholly unfair. And I find it wholly unprofessional that this nation will continue to commit people to war and then leave them there. Yeah. No way.
It's
not fair.
It's insane for all the ideals we just talked about that hamper us in combat and everything else. The one ideal that we've always stood by is never leave a man behind. We have sort of let fall by the wayside from many other engagements from decades ago. Look, it's amazing. When I was going through the website again, TerraSearchMIA.com. And by the way, TERRA is an acronym, correct? I mean, it does stand for...
TERRA stands for Earth, Land, Ground, but then we've built it around the principles that you see in our logo.
Training, expertise, research, recovery, and analysis. So there's TERRA. But I had never heard of anybody doing anything like this. That's what kind of drew me. I'm like, there's an organization out here who's doing something that the government is supposed to do.
It is now.
That the military should be doing, still to a certain extent. And there are people doing it on their own time and their own dime. And I think it's incredibly noble and incredibly honorable.
Thank you. Yeah, we get the numbers up, the participants up. We can get steady state. We'll be able to get a year, multiple missions a year is what we need, is what we want to get to. Not just ones and twosies. Yeah. I actually think the active duty military shouldn't be in it so much because you know how goddamn busy we are. You know how much they already ask of our military, hurricanes and floods and humanitarian. And, the guys love it. When I bump into what it's called an organic mission, when the active duty crowd's out there, we replaced one last year in Sicily. We actually came on the heels of them. It was incredible, hard mud bath. People were getting hurt every day. That they have enough to do. I know they love it, but they have enough to do. If you got drivers like us, let us handle it. Are you kidding? A veteran? We'll do it. I'll take care of it. I love waking up in the morning. I love being out there. And I'm wrapped like a football player. You should see me. I got this belt on. I got this waist belt. I got the knee braces. I got elbow braces. Who cares? I don't care. Look what I'm doing. I can't hurt any more than the guy I'm looking for.
Well, that's certainly a appropriate way to put it.
Right.
You know,
let's step it up. Help. We want to step this up.
well, again,
it should come out when we're out there sometime. I'll let you know, and come on out, bring the team out, and come on out and see what
PJ, I'd absolutely love to take part going forward. I mean, look, I'll say this much: you far exceeded every high expectation I had for our chat today. I'm blown away. It's there's so much more. Literally, this could have been like an 8-hour podcast because I have 8 billion questions. And people who listen to the show, fans of the show, know that I ask a lot of questions. So it's kind of my job. But nonetheless, I have a lot more. But just, your entire military experience, as you mentioned, from Vietnam all the way up and through, and the things that you were a part of and everywhere else. But, what I see more than anything is a guy who loves service and a guy who wants to give back. And the passion and the purity with which you've operated throughout your career and what you're doing now, I think is the ultimate draw for me. It really is a certain humility to the way you've conducted yourself, but that humility comes with the highest level of professionalism and an execution that not many have matched throughout their careers. I'm drawn to good leadership, always have been, always will be, and it's the American Idol principle is what I call it. 3 seconds into American Idol, you can tell if they can sing. 3 seconds into a conversation with somebody, I can tell if they can lead, and that's. I'm drawn to it, and I go right there, and I think you've encapsulated all of it. I genuinely do.
Well, brother, we thank you for having us, and we hope to stay in touch.
Absolutely.
We can, keep this thing going, help with the coalition. This is in all of our interests, and we'll help to follow up with you anytime and answer any questions that you guys got.
100%, and your whole team. Let's get them on. I want to share all their stories. I think it's
okay, brother.
I think they're all individually unique, but TERRA's story in and of itself will live on. So thank you so much for your time. Certainly appreciate it. PJ Dermer, thanks for being part of the Hazard Ground.
All right, Mark. Thank you, brother. Guys, be good. Be safe. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Hazard Ground podcast, hosted by Mark Zinno. If you have an interesting story to tell and you'd like to be on the show, send us an email at producer@hazardground.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.